that I'd never liked her. I had to marry her because that was the need of the time. But the first thing he said against her was that she had some issues with her face and her color. And then he went on to say that she used to speak in Tate Punjabi, and I
mm,
hated it. And she just did it specifically to taunt me.
mm,
Then he said she started crying on little things. She was spoiled by her parents. And at this point, just think about it. Doesn't like all later on he said that she's doing everything to please him. What kind of spoiled brat is that? If you think about it, because he's contradicting himself, right? Then he said she was illiterate, she was jahil, she couldn't read and write, and she could not. She used to love academic conversations, but she could not take parts in any of them. And then she was 19 years old when she started looking after the children of other children of Mirza Bashir. Uh, from his other wives, right?
yeah, yes,
And then this is the point. Like he said that now my outlook about her changed when she started working and
mm,
started assuming the position of a servant or a slave in my household. I
yeah,
said, "Oh, she's not that bad actually,
yeah.
because that's free labor. She does all the work. She takes care of my children." Nabil bhai, stop me, Omar, Nabil bhai, if you want to make a point, inshallah.
No, no, go
So
ahead.
he said that. Sorry.
I said go ahead.
Yes, inshallah. So he said at 19 years old, she started taking care of the children from other wives. And then he basically goes on to mention a very weird thing. We still cannot figure out why did he even say that. It's a completely no-no kind of thing. You never say that about your wife or anybody's wife or any woman for that matter. No Muslim should ever say that she was great at deriving pleasures and she would reignite a dead heart. So through basically deriving pleasure, she would ignite dead hearts. That's extremely, extremely weird, if not a statement that only a pervert would say. So yeah, it's like Nabil Bhai mentioned that a person like that who presents his wife uh, to other people and writes about her or expresses about her in these certain terms or presents her is called the youth by Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then he went on to basically now document the abuses that this particular woman actually went through. He said that during her pregnancies, she would be working a lot and she would be sitting holding her huge stomach. That means like because she's carrying that pregnancy and would sit there for hours and work for hours but would not complain. So this is the spoiled brat, Nabil Bhai. This is the spoiled brat who will be in extreme pain. Child rearing. It's such a difficult process, and Alhamdulillah, the ones who have kids have seen their our spouses going through that process. It's an extremely, extremely difficult process, and he's actually saying that this spoilt brat, according to Mirza Bashir bin Mahmud, she would hold her stomach and she would sit there for hours and hours and work and never complain. And never complain. What a spoiled brat she was. Subhanallah, Subhanallah. And they don't think that this is zulm. They don't think this is abuse. I don't know what else is. And then Mirza Bashir bin Mahmud actually wrote that during her first pregnancy, she contracted a disease, an internal disease that increased with subsequent pregnancies. And like our brother Nabil pointed us towards that it might be some STIs because it's actually not very explicit in the text, but through external sources. And given the evidence, we can assume that these are STIs, sexually transmitted diseases. And just for the people to know what STIs are, is when you have a partner and he's generally not sleeping with just close uh, for like their wives and stuff like that, and he has a habit of uh, sleeping around. So they grab infections from unrelated people and then they transfer it to their spouses. Uh, So says something about Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud there as well. And then he mentioned that uh, she once they were traveling and they traveled to a different city to to see a doctor, and while the children of Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud slept on the seats, she was actually told to, she actually slept on the floor pretty much, and at this point Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud has got a seat, all the children have got a seat, and it is not that she slept, but she's sleeping on the floor, right? So either she does not even get her seat, or if she gets a seat, the children have the rights to two seats while she's on the floor. And anybody who's actually traveled trains, and especially trains in the subcontinent, you can imagine the trains there are filthy. The trains are absolutely dirty. Anybody who has the experience of traveling, and just imagine now, take this back about 100, not 80 or so years, and you'd imagine how bad the situation would be. And then he says that during once Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud was sick, and she was trying to work for him and doing the household chores and stuff like that. Her feet were bruised, are literally the Urdu. In Urdu, it would basically literally transcribe that her feet, the bottom of her feet, her her heels were scraped off. So it's expression that when you're walking excessively and you're doing excessive amount of work, your feet get bruised and your feet are literally being scraped off from all that work. So she was doing that. And all the while, she's not feeling well at all because she had that internal disease, right? And she's not feeling well. And even before this, Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmoud actually mentioned that she had some problem with her heart as well, with her heart as well. And she actually complained about this, and that went away after a while. But she's not fit at that point, and she's working tirelessly day in day out. And then in Qadian, there were these kafilas, these groups coming into the Qadian, and they did not like the food. So what does the Rais of Qadian do? The Rais of Qadian did not say, okay, fine, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna arrange better food for you guys. You've come here, and I'll ask a particular cook or a chef, or to I'll appoint a chef to you to provide you for food. He comes home, he tells his wife, who he thinks is his slave. He comes home and asks and tells her that you have to wake up 3 a.m. in the morning, cook parathas. These is the flatbread, the flatbread that is cooked in the Indian subcontinent. That you have to cook all these parathas for all these people, these group of travelers. You have to cook for all of them. Now, just imagine that for a second. Your wife is sick, she's working all day in the morning, and then you wake her up 2 3 a.m. in the morning to cook for a huge group of people. And this place, he actually does not mention if she gets any help. Apparently she does not get any help. Apparently there's nobody to help her. She just wakes up 2 in the morning, cooks for them, serves his husband, and then in the morning she's again taking care of the kids. What else is abuse? And then he started mentioning now towards the end of her illness, and he said that when she felt really very ill, and she wasn't feeling well at all towards the end of her life, Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud actually brought doctors in to check her, and the doctors he brought in, uh, the doctors that he basically brought in were giving her injections against her will, and every time she was injected, she would tell that this is not helping her, but this is causing her pain and suffering. But they kept on doing it, and with the permission of her husband. And her husband actually admitted that later on he just realized that these injections were wrong. This medication did not help her, but this medication made her situation far worse. Her stomach swelled. And then Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud said that I did not realize, but her wounds were the wounds that were sealed, that these hidden wounds that he mentioned previously, something to do with the first pregnancy, some internal wounds or internal problems. Those wounds were opened again. These wounds were purposely, ripped open pretty much, because he said that he wasn't told that the wounds that had already been healed, they were ripped open. And this is very, very weird, very, very weird. He abused her himself, and then he let other people abuse her without any accountability. You were supposed to be her guardian, but you're just acting like, this is a throwaway thing. And then she was given opium when she was at the hospital at Gangaram. And even at the last breath, okay, fine, you couldn't help her during her life. You couldn't provide her any happiness. You couldn't provide her any comfort. You could not provide her companionship. But in her last breath, on her deathbed, when she's basically in that moment, instead of comforting her, instead of comforting her, he is telling her that you are showing ruhani kamzori. You are showing some weakness in your soul, in your uh, spirituality. You have a spiritual weakness. And he said that uh, and as soon as he basically started scolding her, started telling her that you have these problems, she immediately turned. She did not, instead of trying to have a conversation with her, for her to share her opinion, immediately shut her down. He immediately shut her down, and she knew this. She just completely turned at that time, and she said, "Okay, fine, I made a mistake. I'm sorry about it." When a person comes to you, and your spouse, your kid wants to open up to you, and he's already feeling vulnerable, right? He's already feeling weak, and then you completely shut her off. You're absolutely wrong. How can you think about this? How can you say this? You're weak. You're showing spiritual weakness. So even on her deathbed, she had zero companionship, zero comfort. And then he says that I knew, and it's my personal understanding, maybe because of the sentence he said at the last, that the daughter-in-law of Masih Maud, the Mirza Ghulam Ahmed, couldn't have been taken as a disbeliever. That is why I think so. Like, this particular thing might have been that she had some doubts about Mirza Ghulam Ahmed, right? This is just, there's no evidence for it, but this might be one thing, because whatever she said, according to Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud, that would take away her iman. And at the end, the last one, she complained, and she basically felt unloved. And that is very clear. Why did she feel unloved? If you show all these points, this essay of Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud, and ask, should Maryam feel loved? Any sane person would say no. She would not feel loved, because of all the hardships she had to go through. She was married at 2.5 years old for the benefit of such and such people.